reaching up and making the grab. Odell Beckham Jr. Stafford buys time. Protection is good, and so is the pass. Henderson came out of the backfield. Jefferson in motion. Henderson, nice cutback. Stafford rolling and throwing. Caught, Cup, touchdown. Stafford caught on the run. Cup, who else? Comes out of the slot to the right, looks that way, fires that way. Cup makes the grab at about the 18-yard line. Pass, Cup, got it, touchdown. Burrow trying to keep it going, gets spun down, gets it away, and incomplete. It looked like P-Ron might have had a shot to make the grab, but the Rams now running down to celebrate with a defensive play.
And guess who? Guess who? I mean, you don't even have to think about it. Do not even have to think about it.
Pointing to the ring finger.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the East Coast Rams podcast. I am your co-host Ashton with my awesome co-host Zac. And, we were talking a little bit before the pod, and there's no news at all to talk about. I mean, such a slow off season for the Rams. I think this is gonna be a quick pod, Zac.
Yeah, initially I thought we were just going to talk about the combine and the experiences there, but man, that feels like so 2 or 3 weeks ago when it was literally just a couple days ago. But man,
yeah. Me and you were talking about doing a pod. Like, we were going to do a mini pod because, guys, we typically don't do week to week in the off season. And we were like, oh, we'll just do like a quick reaction to you going to the combine, get a lot of good comments, put a few things out there, might be 20, 30 minutes. But, I guess Snead will Snead, and he has his own plans.
Yeah, for sure. Because the combine now feels like it's been 10 years ago, we don't really need to cover it too much. There are a lot of great prospects out there, definitely to keep our eyes on. But the Rams are making these moves. I will say, going into this, the fan experience was way better than it's been in the past. A lot of times it's just been like little small things here and there. You can, get your picture jumping on the vertical jump. You can, push fake weights around if you want to, just to kind of demonstrate some of the things. And they still had those things, but they made it a lot more fun atmosphere for the kids. They brought in an obstacle course. They did the 40-yard dash with like a giant 40-yard dash. They had a 40-yard LED wall outside. So they had a lot of cool experiences. You got to see the Lombardi trophy, the Colts Lombardi trophy from when they won the Super Bowl. And then you got to see all the Super Bowl rings. So I got to, I was, this close with a plexiglass casing away from the Rams last Super Bowl ring. So that was pretty cool. The only thing I will say is, man, they did not have enough concession stands for the Saturday where they had the quarterbacks, tight ends, and wide receivers. I don't know if they just didn't expect that thing to be packed. I mean, that thing was slammed. And so when my kid wanted, a pretzel, we probably waited in line for almost 40 minutes to get a pretzel, which is kind of crazy.
Was it good?
It was a pretzel. It was fine. But no, it was a great atmosphere. It was really cool to watch the prospects. It's kind of eerie where everyone's quiet and everyone has headsets in their ear, listening to the broadcast through Bluetooth instead of listening through the speakers within the stadium, trying to keep it quiet for the athletes to, actually do their thing. But it's a cool experience. I'm hoping that it stays in Indy. Mostly, I'm biased because, I'm here and it's easy for me to cover. But from what I hear I've talked to several different people from the media. I have a lot of cool stories from that week, but a lot of people just like the atmosphere. They like the fact that Lucas Oil Stadium is really close to the convention center. It's really close to a lot of walking, a lot of a lot of restaurants, bars, things like that. A lot of high end and not so high end bars and restaurants. So it's a really cool experience. Definitely recommend anyone who can come will. It's just fun, even if you go to the combine and you want to go get a drink, at the local bar, downtown. It's hilarious who you'll run into. One night when I was out, I ran into the Chicago Bears head coach. He was there. I was actually talking with the Cardinals new quarterback coach, which was interesting. So a lot of cool things that happened during the combine, and a lot of people you'll get to see just walking around, having dinner and things like that. So definitely a cool experience if anyone gets a chance to go. It's a free event. So it, like I said, really cool experience.
No, Zach, that sounds cool, and I look forward to us breaking down, talking about some of the people who caught your eye, who we may think is a fit for the Rams, who we may think isn't a fit, some gems. We'll go through all that. I know personally, I want to get out there to see a combine at least once in the next few years, so I'm hoping I can make it work in the next few years, given given how things shake out, guys.
Maybe we'll get media credentials so that we can actually, cover it as media folk instead of just, observing as much as I can from the outside in.
Yeah, we'll be hitting 2 years soon, so we're already on season 3, and it's been a blast. But let's talk about the elephant in the room, or the ram in the room. I don't know how you want to go with that metaphor. But all this news and Rams Twitter on fire, people arguing with each other, debating in best case scenarios. Zach, we started to get like news trickling in over the weekend, coming in about Leonard Floyd, more stuff about Ramsey. And it seems like they are dedicated to tearing down the defensive side of the ball. All things aside, I just feel like they're bringing it down. They're trying to get all the assets they can. And I recommend people to listen to 11 Personnel podcast. Jordan Rodriguez has a lot of good stuff about why they're doing this, what they're doing, and the overall plan. Basically, they want to build up the offense, kind of like how we said it reminds us of the 2017 team. I think you said that, Zach. Kind of like refocusing all on offense, and hopefully we score enough points to win every game. So, Zach, what was your response as these things started to come out? Now we're getting more context with reporting because, guys, we're not going to pretend we have like sources inside the organization or anything like that. We're just reacting to news we have available. And now that we have available that they do want to address the offensive side of the ball, like, how are you reacting to this? Do you think it's smart to do that now versus a year from now, which I think I believe they were going to go in that direction a year from now, not completely remove every defensive key player. What's your point of view on that?
Yeah, and I think we discussed this kind of even on the last pod, because in the last pod, Bobby Wagner was mutually leaving, and the Ramsey news was kind of trickling in there. I think Leonard Floyd had a cryptic tweet, things like that. But like you said, things escalated this past over the last weekend. Especially because it was the combine, all the media was together, all the coaches were together, other than Les and GMs outside of Les Snead and Sean McVay. But they were all together. They were all talking. They were all talking about prospects, both free agency, trades, things like that. And so this was a topic that came up. Ramsey was a topic that came up. And I think we both have agreed over the past several podcasts that. And I even think if you listen to the 11 personnel and things like that, I think they're doing this 1 year sooner than they initially planned. And I think the 2022 season affected that quite a bit, just because of all the injuries that happened, the lack of success, things like that. And so I think we discussed that, next year, the next year was going to be the year where Ramsey and Aaron Donald were probably going to leave. they're going to retool. They're going to retool the offense and then go from there. And then the following year, retool the defense and things like that. So we're 1 year sooner than that. It's just an interesting play because we keep going on like. Aaron Donald is coming back. There's no doubt in my mind. I feel like people keep thinking, yeah, he's, well, if Ramsey leaves, if Leonard Floyd leaves, like Ashawn Robinson leaves, like we're just leaving. Like Aaron Donald is clearly the next person to go. I don't really think Aaron Donald wants to go to another team for 1-2 more years. I think if he wanted to be done, he could have retired last year, or he could retire now and just move on. But he is coming back, and I do believe he is coming back. And so, we're going to see what happens. And I think under Raheem Morris, the defense will be okay. I mean, we have some still decent defenders on the team. We still need to kind of work out maybe our secondary a little bit, but I'm okay with what we have other than maybe filling an extra tight end, having another defensive back there, depending on what happens with Ramsey. I will still say that I believe that Ramsey will stay on the team. I'm not sure that there is. I'm not sure that the Rams are going to get what they would want from the trade, because I think everyone expects that they want a first round pick no matter what. And so if that's not something that people are actually willing to pay for to get Ramsey, then I definitely think that Ramsey is going to be there. And Ramsey's had cryptic tweets over the last several weeks. There's been some, when I say sources, I would say, people that I trust on, at least through Twitter, Rams tapes, and even Vince, who does all the cool pins and stuff like that. They've all reached out to, at least from what they say, they've said they've talked to Ramsey, and not that they gave any detail about their conversations or things like that, but it just makes it feel like, I don't think there's bad blood between the Rams and Jalen.
He did make a comment on a Rams tapes video and said that he didn't necessarily want to be a Ram anymore.
That's okay. So if you,
I don't.
Did you go back and look at Rams tape? Rams tapes then posted something separately after the fact saying, I didn't clarify, I didn't put in all the full details. That comment was,
then you don't post it like that.
Well, and he deleted it, and I think he kind of spoke too soon.
I mean, it can be the heat in the moment type deal. Like,
we're not
the
thing is that we're not hearing the things like we're not hearing the same things we're hearing with Allen Robinson and Bobby Wagner. Like, Bobby Wagner's thing was mutual. Jalen Ramsey and Allen Robinson, which we'll talk about later, is between him and his agent, they are now allowed to seek a trade. None of this has really been the way we hear it from Ramsey is that there have been phone calls to the Rams about Ramsey. It's not so much that the Rams are shopping him around, other than that they're receiving calls about him, and maybe they are shopping him around, maybe, but. Again, I don't think it's because of a lack of his talent or a lack of his skill. They're just trying to figure out how they can get underneath the cap and be able to succeed moving forward. Because they don't
have to move him to get under the cap. The thing is, like, now's the optimal time to move him if you are going to move him. 2 years remaining on his deal. He wants more money. The Rams will not be able to give him that money in the next 2 years if they want to start a rebuild. So, like, if you're going to move him, now is the time. And I personally think they are shopping him around. A lot of these leaks, and I don't know this, like, personally, but I believe a lot of leaks are driven by the Rams themselves. Maybe some by other teams. But for the most part, the Rams are trying to raise his price. I do think they will be able to get a first for him. He is still, like, people who watch the tape, not like average NFL people who are like, oh, that's too much to ask for a cornerback after a down year. Wasn't Ramsey, like, great last year? Was he a top 5 cornerback? No. But he's still elite.
Go ahead.
He's still he's like in that 6 or 7 for me. Like I feel like he didn't have his best year. That's my point. Is he's still great. He just wasn't like super top 5 cornerback. He was like 6 or 7, which is still good and teams will still value him at a first round pick. The question is what more do you get or what less do you get depending on how much of that cap you take, at least for this year. And that's going to be up to the Rams to determine. And I think he's gone. I mean, apparently Allen Robinson may have more of a market than we thought, but I still like just get what you can for him.
I mean, both of those are a trade or nothing. I mean, it's neither one of them. They're not going to cut either one of them. It would make no
No,
sense to cut
you
either
would
one of
lose
them.
money with Robinson, and
Yeah.
you would only get, I think, like 2-3 mil from cutting Ramsey, which is stupid. Or
Yeah, I
it
mean,
might be less.
Ramsey does provide. I feel like he does provide value, especially if he's really interested in like transitioning again from that cornerback position to that safety position. If he's really interested, I feel like that's where he can shine on other teams. Is like, he's saying, yeah, I'm here, but I'm still long term because I don't have to always play at this position. I can switch into a safety position, which allows me to stick around in the league a lot longer.
He
I don't
still
know.
has a year or 2 left at cornerback too,
Oh, for
like
sure.
being
And
premier.
this is his last year of guaranteed money with the Rams. And other than that, again, personal opinion, I think he's going to come back. I think that there's just been a whole lot of noise, but nothing like we've heard about from Robinson, other than what he's tweeted, which again, you can take sometimes with a grain of salt what he's doing. Because again, they're more cryptic than they are, true.
Well, you have to remember it benefits teams trying to trade for Ramsey to not have the details leak. You know why? Because if a competitive team is also like managing offers against the Rams, if your offer gets out, then the other team can counter with something slightly better and it starts a bidding war. And teams don't want to get into that. They want the price of Ramsey low. That's why I think this information coming out at all kind of indicates to me the team wants to raise the price even more than what they're getting offered.
It's possible, but again, it just depends on what the Rams want moving forward. If they really want, to free up that cap space for this year, like you said, they don't have to. I mean, if you go through, we could save up all that money by, cutting other players and not cutting your top corner and one of your top defenders that's left. Leonard Floyd, for instance. I'm not really sure why sources put out that. That they are either going to trade him or cut him. It seems silly to say that they're going to cut him when, they're trying to shop him around. Like, what's the point of trying to trade for him if they know he's going to get cut at some point?
Well, league people know this. Like, other teams aren't stupid for the most part. Like, the 31 of the 32 teams know that the Rams are going to have to cut him if he doesn't. If they're trying to trade him, they know they want to get rid of him. They can infer that he's going to get cut. So, like, I don't think that's necessarily as big of a deal as some people want to make it. I think the more bigger point of emphasis is, can we get a trade partner for him? And people will be like, why don't they just try to get him in the open market? Because he might be cheaper if you trade for him. And he'll cost a pick, but you get a first shot at signing a deal with him. And I think he's still, Zach has 2 years left on his deal? 2 or maybe 1 year?
Yes, I just had that up and I will pull it up again. But yeah, I think he still has 2025. So yeah, still 2 years left. So I mean,
Yeah.
and he's a big hit, and I mean the reason why they want him, that they would cut him before the June 1st is to save the money for 2024. They would save a whole heck of a lot of money by trading him, before the June 1st. I think, what was it? Pre-cut, it would be 19 million in dead money in 2023, 3 million savings in 2023, and 22.5 million savings in 2024. So they would be
Yeah,
it's mostly to save the money in 2024 because if they cut them
the cash.
post, they're only saving they'll save a lot more. So if they save them, they'll save a lot more this year, 5.5 million, but then they would only save 10 million in 2024.
I think they're gonna try to eat it this year.
I mean, I think that's the plan. I think the plan is, I mean, and even Les Snead said they're going to utilize the drafts probably more heavily than they have in the years past. So I expect, them to do something.
That sounds like a pick in the first round, Zach.
Well, that's if they get a pick in the first round, but again, there has to be an offer that's the Rams are willing to do for Ramsey. I think he's still a valuable player on this team. And again, I think the Rams could transition him to that safety role and keep him in house. I still think that could be a benefit to the Rams. They could restructure his deal if they wanted to. They could have done it last year. They didn't. I think that's another
Rams
tool.
don't pay safeties. That's just
they don't. But when you're Jalen Ramsey and when you're the top corner in the league for so many years, and then you move over to safety, and now you can, on top of being safety, you can train the next cornerbacks. I think that's almost as valuable. I mean, they don't pay.
I would agree
here's the
with
thing.
you if
They don't pay
him.
linebackers either, but they still paid Bobby Wagner for at least a year.
And then they cut him.
They did cut him, but again, that was a one-time mutual thing. Again, all things that we have no idea what's happening. He probably could be traded. I mean, all signs saying that he will be traded, but I would not be surprised if they keep him around.
Hey, if he stays, I'll be happy. He's a great player. I don't want him to leave. I do agree. Our offense needs something. It needs something to get injected into it. And, Allen Robinson wasn't it. The O-line needs some work. Just a lot of work to go around on the offensive side of the ball. And so if they do this direction, which, again, we don't know, I think it's going to be a rocky season next year. I really do.
I mean,
but
all signs point
that
they want to they want to redo this offense. They want to figure it out. I think that they think that they can sacrifice on the defense a little bit, to as long as you're scoring points, which, Sean McVay is very used to doing that. I mean, his first several years, it wasn't really their defense that shined other than Aaron Donald and a couple of players, when Dominican Sue was here and things like that. Aqib Talib was here. They had great defenders on the time, but when they were playing against Patrick Mahomes, it wasn't. I mean, yes, the defense did score a couple of times against that, but it was the high octane offense that was just putting up the points, and that's what they were relying on. And so I think that's what they're trying to get back to again. If they can get back to a more rhythmic offense, a more octane offense, that's what they're striving for. I think that's what LA, again, I kind of said this all last year too, when during this, is like the LA it's the stardom. Like, you're here in LA to attract fans. And if you are just having a mediocre offense and winning games, it's still not really interesting people. I mean, you have to be scoring those 30, 40 point games pretty much weekly to keep this high octane, LA lifestyle around. And
so let's go in that direction. Let's say they want a high octane offense. How do they get there? If you're the GM, Zach, you're right there. Starting from this point on, how do you get an offense that was in the bottom 10 of the league turned around? Outside of, let's assume everyone's injury free and healthy.
Yeah, I think we just restructure how the offensive line works. I mean, I think that for the most part, 4 of the 5 guys probably can stick around for this next year. I think, I think we still have to figure out what Joe Noteboom's future is going to look like. I mean, he got paid decent amount for, not the quality of work that we expect. Again, yes, he was injured for a good portion of the season, but still, that did not work out. We saw that, really, when Coleman Shelton was as the center, they had a little bit better of a rhythm and than when Brian Allen was in there. So again, it is reshifting the offensive line, trying to keep that as healthy as possible, retooling it. Obviously, having Cooper Kupp, Matthew Stafford back there. If Cam Akers can, keep the fire lit like he did last year, obviously having some little depth in that position as well. Figuring out what we're going to do about the tight end position. Again, I don't want to see Higbee leave, but there is a cost of business that comes. And so I think they're going to have to figure out that position. And I think we can go about this, but man, some people did not like my idea of them picking a tight end at 36, which, depending on if they get an additional first round pick or whatever.
I think if they get a first round pick, I would be okay with them getting a tight end.
I feel like people don't realize is that the tight end is a huge component when it comes to blocking. He can be part of the O-line or he can be part of the wide receiving core. And so if you get that 1 in a million, if you can get that Travis Kelce, you can get that George Kittle, you can get that, insert best tight ends, I feel like it's something to go for, especially if you need someone who's a really good pass blocker or run blocker, just to help you out in that position. And I mean, not saying Higbee's not, but I think you could do better. And when you look at the combine,
that Georgia tight end was so good.
Yeah, and I think, and like I put up stats today as far as how, and again, this is where people really didn't seem to like what I was saying about it, but like if you look, there's not that many tight ends who go. I hate ads when I'm not ad blocking you people.
Who go in the first 2 rounds?
Yeah, or who go in the first round. If you look at it, no tight end was picked in 2022 in the first round. There was a couple that were picked in 2021, no one in 2020, one in 2021, none in 2020, and then 2 in 2019. So, it's one of those things where there could be, Darnell Washington with Georgia. Like he could be a good fit and he could be around at pick 36. I mean, remember, there's 32 picks in the first round. So, well, yeah. And so, you got 4 more picks and then it's us. So it's really interesting how that's going to work out. But
yeah, there will also be some quality wide receivers in round 3. Like the North Carolina, Josh Downs, I believe his name is, Cedric Tillman, Jalen Hyatt, like some quality wide receivers you can get in the 3rd round too. So if we have a first round pick and we get a defender, I'm guessing they would probably target to kind of restock the defense if they do trade away Ramsey, and then go tight end and then wide receiver, and then maybe get a decent lineman in the 4th. You could be looking, because later in the draft, this is a super stacked running back draft, and that means you can wait until 6 or 7 to get that running back to be behind or go behind Akers. I like Chase Brown. I know people are tired of me saying that, but I really love his tape. The more I've been watching it after seeing a few of his games in Illinois, the running back from Minnesota, he looks electric. I know a lot of people who watch UCLA love that UCLA running back. I feel like he has some good moments too. So there's a lot of guys that'll be available later in draft for running back. I think when you retool wide receiver, we still have Van Jefferson. So like we don't have to fully go hard wide receiver, but a lineman here or there, a wide receiver here and there, and you get a great tight end, Zach, that could turn us around to a top 10 offense pretty quickly.
For sure. And so I think when we talk about the draft, we're going to have to figure out where the Rams are going to go in the draft. Are they going to go more defensive draft and more free agency offense? Or are they going to do the reverse? Because again, there's also a lot of good, pass rushers, which is has been a problem. And if we're also going to lose, and it seems like we're most likely going to lose our other pass rusher, we're going to have to pick something up. And again, there was a hefty number of pass rushers that also could be available at that 36 spot.
Yeah,
That
Nolan Smith, I think, would be a great option on that edge in
I
the
just,
first round.
yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's if we get a first round. I mean, if someone trades up for it, that would be a good pick. But I mean, I think he's going to be one of those who are going to be gone by the first round.
Yeah, so again, with how kind of Jordan Rodriguez was breaking this down, it sounded like they wanted to go with veterans on the defense, kind of like how we did in 2017, hire a bunch of more team-friendly players, veterans that can backfill the spots on the defense. And on the offense, she just vaguely said that they were retooling. So I don't know how many free agents we could get on offense that are cheap, but I do expect majority of the draft be offensive focus outside of them pushing for an edge. Like you said, I think that if they get a first round pick from Ramsey, I would be shocked. Someone really good would have to fall to our pick because it's going to be a later pick in the first round, right? Like you're talking about at high as 17, 16.
Right.
So if we're around 20 and I can't even think of who would be crazy enough for them not to go like a Nolan Smith. Yeah, I would be shocked if they went offense, which is kind of my point in that situation.
Interesting. I think they could, if anybody, they would probably. I think they would pick up a tight end. I think that's
In the first round?
Not in the first round. I would say if they kept their 36, I think that they would go tight end. If they get a first round, then obviously that's something else. But if they keep a second round, I think I would really want to look at that tight end spot. I mean, obviously this all depends on what happens with Higbee, because he's a free agent, and right, he is a free agent, right?
Like if a Quentin Johnson fell to 16, Zach, do you think McVay would take Quentin Johnson? I think McVay would draft him in a heartbeat. Oh my gosh. Could you imagine Cooper Kupp and Quentin Johnson on the same team?
I mean, yeah. I mean, I think that would be pretty good, but I don't think you'll see that until year 2. I don't know if you would see that year 1. And by that point, next year we could be talking about Cooper Kupp leaving. So, especially with everything that's happening. So I don't know. I mean, everything is in a big vacuum, and we kind of have to see how things play out. But I mean, definitely, I think McVay really wants his offensive weapons. He wants that offensive powerhouse again, like they used to be. Because that's what McVay is. And if they don't have a good offense and they're just relying on their defense, like what is McVay doing there? So again, I come back to, like, they have to have a plan. People keep freaking out about all this, and if Ramsey leaves, he leaves. And yes, it's disappointing, but it is what it is. It is a business. Everyone knows this. There's other than a few players having hurt feelings because they didn't like the way things were handled, whatever. But it is a business. We get it. Fans get kind of pulled by their heartstrings by players. I mean, shoot. I mean, if we were talking about Cooper Kupp, this would be a totally different scenario. Or, it's just one of those things where, our DNA kind of sometimes comes into this.
And Cooper Kupp's going to leave this team. He's not going to retire, Ram. I'm sorry, guys, if that hurts your feelings or upsets you.
Do you, I keep going back and forth on that. I could almost see him just retire. at a young age and not continue on.
I
Like
mean,
if
maybe
Stafford's
if
done, I could see him and Stafford just being like, peace, I'm out, you know.
I think potentially if we win another, like, if we were somehow go to the Super Bowl this year or the year after that, I could see both of them retiring after a second Super Bowl. I definitely could see that. But for the most part, he has a lot in his tank. His pure athletic skill was never the reason he was great. So I feel like his longevity is going to be a lot better than some other wide receivers, right? Like who had to ride off of pure athleticism.
Sure. But I could also see him. I mean, he's, again, love Cooper Cup. I think he could play as long as he wants to. But I mean, he is more injury prone. I mean, this is now his second, decently big injury. Assuming like you said, I think that the Rams would either have to go to the Super Bowl or get back to a championship game or something like that. And if it's Stafford's last year, and Cooper Cup, by that point he'll be 30. Given in 2024 how that looks off, like I could potentially see them sailing to the sunset, and Cooper Cup kind of um doing his kind of own thing.
Yeah, I mean,
Maybe even going back and being a coach or doing something else.
yeah, I definitely think Cooper Cup could slide into that wide receiver coach role pretty easily. Now, we always want to talk about players turning into coaches, and it rarely happens in retrospect. Uh, but I mean, again, he is one of the smartest players you can listen to. I still remember when he was breaking down that fire zone drill, and people are like, that's probably when the greater NFL fan bases start to see how smart he is, because we've known this for a few years with him. Uh, I I feel like with him, we've known this as a fan base for a few years, and then the entire NFL media, he gives this amazing answer, and people are like, "Oh, who knew Cooper Cup was so smart?" I'm like, just listen to him anytime he's in an interview.
Right.
Like he knows as much about the coverage as any defender.
Yeah, he's super smart and knows the system really well. And so, yeah, I mean, I see it both ways. I see him, leaving the Rams and going on another team. And, but if he moves to another team, I almost see him slipping to a 2-3 role. Because as great as I think Cooper Cup is just perfectly aligned with Sean McVay and his system. He thrived under Jared Goff. He thrived under Matthew Stafford. But that's how this offense was built. I don't know if any other scheme would work well. I mean, maybe it will, maybe it won't, but I could see that potential again. Yes, I do agree with you that I think it's most likely that he will move on to another team, and I would not be shocked at all. But I would also not be shocked to see him, yes, actually retire. After he's done with this stint with the Rams, because I think he, that's just me. I could see it happen.
Yeah, I
Just
mean,
knowing his personality and things like that, I think I could see it happen.
I get why fans want to believe every great in their team history will stay with their team for the entire duration of their career. That's just not how the NFL works 90% of the time.
Sure.
Bobby Wagner was on Seahawks for almost every year of his career till this year. Like, it's gonna happen, I believe, unless if he retires.
Yeah, I mean, there's usually good reason for it. I mean, if you look at Bobby Wagner, he wanted to get out of Seattle, and Seattle didn't really want to pay him anymore. Same thing with, I mean, you look at Russell Wilson and how that relationship just crumbled with Pete Carroll, and you have those bad blood situations where they do think they have stuff left in the tank, and the system just doesn't believe in it anymore. And so if that happens within the Rams, then I fully see that they would give up on and move on from Cooper Cup. But we'll see what happens.
So Zach, do you think wide receiver is a need, even if Robinson stays? Uh, is that a need that this team has to address?
If Robinson stays, I don't think I don't think it will be as important. Um, Again, I kind of go back to, I still think you would need to pick up a nice tight end, but you may pick up, a wide receiver in the draft, but and obviously we are not in Les Need's head, and we have no idea what he'll do because he change. I mean, he surprises us every time. But I don't
Yep.
think it would be a first round, second round pick um, that we would get a wide receiver.
No, and there's some quality wide receivers, as we have already stated later in the draft. Crazy times, man. Crazy times.
Yeah. I mean, the only other big news I think that we really, I think we talked about most of the free agent stuff that happened, but
Mm-hmm.
the news about Matt Gay and that he will
Oh,
become
yeah.
a free agent, that they were not going to franchise tag him, which again, I think it's kind of obvious. I mean, A, the Rams don't use franchise tags ever, but B, it seems always kind of weird to franchise tag a kicker, knowing that I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen.
We might not have the money to pay him.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a limited funds for him, but I think he could bring in a couple more million than what the Rams probably can offer at most. So
Oh, yeah.
it'll definitely
If
be
he
interesting to see.
stays, it's because he wants to be here.
Yeah, and maybe that's the reason. I don't
No,
know.
that's fine.
And yeah, we'll totally take it. I mean, we saw how some other. I mean, he came from the Bucks, and the Bucks kind of just dropped him. I don't think the Rams fans especially don't really want to go through another kicking tryout
Oh, my
because
gosh.
that worked out so great for us. The couple of years
Man.
between Greg the Leg and Matt Gay. So
Can you imagine if we were doing the podcast during the various rotation of kickers?
yeah, it was
Oh
not.
man, we would have had a dedicated 20-minute segment to complaining about kicking and special teams.
Mm-hmm.
Which, to be fair, special teams really hasn't gotten any better in the last 2 years.
No, other than Matt Gay. I mean, I'm still in the thing that I'm not a Riley Dixon fan. So
When you have a great kicker and a great returner, and your special teams is still awful, that says a lot.
yeah.
That's not good. Not to mention, we've been drafting a lot of players for special teams only in the 7th round. Like, consistently saying, oh, this person didn't show a lot, but a great special teams player is going to be a key playmaker on special teams. And we have a bottom 10 league special teams unit. I'm like, okay.
Yep.
Rough.
So yeah, that's kind of my comments about about all this free agency stuff. Obviously, we'll see what happens within the next 2 weeks. That's when moves will be made.
A
As
lot
the
of
new
teams
league
are
starts.
going through the same thing too, and people are getting cut. Some really good players are getting cut, and
Well,
I'll be interested to see if we can maybe attract one or two of these veteran players, a Frank Clark or something like that.
yeah,
Like, we won't be able to pay them, so we're not going to have that advantage. But if we say, hey, you want a chance to play against or across from Aaron Donald? You want to play across from Cooper Kupp? You want to play with that dude? Come here. Sean McVay has a record of being successful. Messed up situation last year, but
yeah.
we're rebounding. I guess also, Zach, I don't know if you listened to the last 11 Personnel podcast or read Jordan Rodriguez' kind of like year summary of the Rams and like how Sean McVay went down a very, very bad road mentally, kind of causing a very negative culture in the building. Not of his, kind of his fault, but it's one of those things where he's a control freak, which is fine. That's a personality trait. And everything was spinning out of control around him. And that was causing him to further go down the tube, which was causing the environment around him to get chaotic. He even gave up play calling, and that caused him like semi-depression. Do you have a reaction to that? I know personally mental health is something that people don't talk about enough, and this is a good kind of opening portal to a lot of people who don't think about it.
Yeah, I mean, mental health is obviously is super important, and we all need to, take time to reflect. I mean, I feel like we're all, this day and age, we're all go 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 go, and you don't really realize that you have a problem until you already spiraled down, and I think that would happen with him. He was used to so much success. They just came off a Super Bowl win, and then things just fell off the wheels. And again, it's not really to his fault. Things just kept spiraling down. Offensive line changed every single week for the first 11 weeks. I think he feels bad about that play to Cooper Cup. I don't think that helped at all. Not saying it was his. I mean, he made the call to leave him in, even though they were losing and stuff like that. But like, it wasn't his fault that Cooper Cup got injured, but I'm sure he took responsibility for it because it was his play to keep him in the game and to give him the ball.
His grandfather
Yeah, his
passing.
grandfather passed away. I mean, he had a lot going on.
Yeah.
I mean, his wife, her family's in Ukraine and going through all that at that same time. There's just a lot, and so I think it did hit him, and it was a sad point, but I think he did. Outside of the Rams organization, I'm sure he had his silo of people that he could rely on to towards the end. But I think Raheem Morris really helped him out. I mean, even in that article, I did read that article by Jordan, and it kind of made it feel like
Beautiful.
he
Beautiful.
was kind of leading as the head coach. I mean, Raheem was kind of being that interim head coach while McVay was kind of spiraling down. So knowing that Raheem has that skill set, I think is super powerful, and that still the Colts decided not to choose him can be a blessing for the Rams for this coming year, especially if they're retooling their defense, or restructuring their defense while they're retooling their offense. So I'm just glad that he was able to take time and figure out what's best for him. He's coming back to the Rams organization. Hopefully, he's taking this time to reflect and to kind of get his strength back, then to kind of scheme up what he wants to do going forward with Matt LaFleur, or Mike LaFleur. Is that Mike?
Yeah, Mike.
I always get that confused, Mike and Matt. Go ahead.
Yeah, to me, it was kind of shocking reading that, Zach, just because the strength of this team for the longest time under McVay has been the culture in the building. It's like you always heard great things from the players, from the coaches, from outside reporters, from reporters, that great culture, just top-notch building. Even in 2019, when things we thought were at their lowest, great culture, like just bouncing back. And it didn't even occur to me this past year that the culture itself took a hit on top of the injuries, on top of the team struggling performance-wise. And, I'm hoping as a person he can bounce back from that. Like you said, Zach, guys, you got to take care of yourselves. Now, that doesn't mean sit in a room in complete darkness for 2 weeks. That's a little weird. I'm taking an Aaron Rodgers shot there, Zach.
Yeah, I know, in a little cave by yourself.
Yeah, and that's a little weird. But honestly, do what makes you feel like you can decompress, and lean on the people closest to you that are your friends to help you get through it. That's the
For sure.
biggest thing.
For sure. All right. Did we miss
Not
anything?
a dull moment.
Yeah. Not a dull moment. Think we missed anything? A lot happening this week.
No, guys. We'll try to next podcast have a pretty good breakdown of the draft. I think me and Zach will probably do mock drafts, talk about our mock drafts, kind of like the direction we went, why we went that direction. Of course, we'll talk about any news that I'm sure the Rams will do. Let me just make sure they didn't trade anyone yet. Yep, we're still good. We're good, Zach.
So far.
They're waiting until we post before putting out the new press release. So
yep. All right. Well, I think we're going to wrap it up for this episode of the East Coast Rams podcast. You can always send questions and feedback to feedback@eastcoastrams.com or hit us up on Twitter. Our official Twitter account is @East Coast Rams. Ashton, how can people stay connected with you?
You can find me on the Twitterverse, RamFanAshton1, and you can see them both on both of our screens. Sorry, it inverts it. Bam.
Yep. So yeah, follow us. Great content is always coming out. We're trying to keep improving our East Coast Rams fandom. Thank you to everyone who does support us.
Look at all this nice new setup.
Oh yeah.
Zach
Our
did a
video
great job.
page is looking pretty good. We're looking a little polished here. But yeah, if you guys have any comments or concerns, please let us know. Appreciate everyone who does listen to the pod. Thank you guys for the awesome conversations that we're having. Yes, this is kind of chaotic times, but everyone has, for the most part, been very cordial and been very, using social media for good and not necessarily for evil, which is great. At least in, you responding back to me on my crazy, pick the tight end with your first pick in the NFL. So, but that's what we're here for. We're here to, see what we can get, and you never know what Leslie's going to do.
Me and you got in a few Twitter skirmishes, let's say. It's fine. It happens.
It's fine. Sometimes I want to skirmish against you on Twitter, but it's all right. All right. No big deal. No big deal. We're still here. But if you're listening to this on the audio version of the podcast, you can also find us on the video version, which is on YouTube. You can find our YouTube page at youtube.com/East Coast Rams. Please subscribe to the podcast, subscribe to the YouTube channel, leave a review on Apple Podcasts. That's always beneficial for people to find us, share us, click the bell, keep notifying us when new posts come out. It'll be great. Thumbs up. All right, guys. Well, we're going to wrap it up. You guys have a great week. Try to stay calm. Try to, find something to not stay on Twitter 24/7 like we do some days to keep up on the latest news, and we will see you all next time. Horns up.